In the shining halls of the Zerath Empire, silence filled the throne room. The alien emperor, tall and cold as stone, sat upon his crystal seat. His golden eyes glowed with power, but his heart was darker than space itself. Before him stood his daughter, Princess Lyra. Lyra's skin shimmered faintly blue, her eyes soft like moonlight. She looked down, unable to meet her father's gaze. The royal healers had spoken the words that broke her world. She cannot bear children. The royal bloodline ends with her. The emperor's voice was sharp and cruel. Then she is useless to the throne. A broken line must be erased. The court stood silent. No one dared to speak. That night, while the empire slept, the emperor gave a secret order. Lyra was to be sold. No ceremony, no farewell, just a deal made with cold traders. To the galaxy, it was as if she never existed. They took her under heavy guard. She did not cry. She only whispered one question to herself. Why was I born if not to be loved? Hours later, far from the shining cities, a small cargo ship left the imperial docks. Inside a metal pod, the princess sat alone, chained, scared, forgotten. Stars passed outside her window like falling tears. But destiny was not done with her yet. On a quiet human colony called Eden 12, far from the Empire, Ethan Cole worked in his dusty workshop. He was a human single-dad mechanic, fixing ships for travelers and smugglers who passed through. His hands were rough, his eyes tired, but his heart was gentle. Every night after long hours, he read stories to his young son Leo about heroes who saved galaxies. Ethan often smiled and said, "Humans may be small, but we never stop caring." One stormy night, as Ethan closed his shop, the sky exploded in light. A burning pod streaked across the clouds and crashed beyond the hills. The ground shook, dust filled the air, and his son shouted, "Dad, a star fell." Ethan grabbed his flashlight and rushed out in his small hover truck. The wrecked pod smoked in the dirt, metal twisted and glowing red. Inside, through a broken glass hatch, he saw something move. Someone. He pulled the hatch open and froze. There she was, an alien girl, weak and trembling, her chains broken by the crash. Her pale blue skin glimmered under the light. She looked frightened, confused, and lost. "Hey, it's okay," Ethan said softly. "You're safe now." She didn't answer. She didn't even seem to understand his words. But when he offered his hand, she hesitated, then slowly took it. Her touch was cold, fragile like glass. Ethan carried her to his truck, covered her with his jacket, and drove back to his workshop. His son watched silently, curious but kind. That night, as the alien girl rested on a small cot, Ethan noticed the mark on her wrist. A royal sigil burned into her skin. He didn't know it yet, but he had just brought home the lost daughter of an empire. Meanwhile, across the stars, the Emperor's guards reported the news. "Your Majesty, the transport was destroyed. The girl is missing." The Emperor's eyes turned to fire. "Find her. No one must know she lives," and so, a hunt began, one that would cross worlds, test hearts, and challenge the meaning of life itself. But for now, in a small workshop on a quiet planet, a human mechanic had given shelter to someone the galaxy had thrown away. And for the first time in her life, the souled daughter slept in peace, unaware that the human who saved her would soon change not just her fate, but the fate of the stars themselves. The sun rose slowly over the dusty skies of Eden 12. Inside the small workshop, the alien girl opened her eyes for the first time since the crash. The air smelled of oil, metal, and warm bread. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. She saw a little human boy sitting beside her bed holding a small toy spaceship. When he noticed she was awake, he smiled brightly. "Hi, I'm Leo. Dad said you're hurt. But you'll be okay." Lyra blinked, confused by his words. But his kindness needed no translation. A moment later, Ethan Cole entered the room, wiping his hands on a cloth. "Hey there," he said softly. "You gave us quite a scare last night." He offered her a cup of warm water. Lyra hesitated, then took it with trembling fingers. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. The words came out in a broken alien accent. "Where am I?" Ethan smiled. "You're safe. This is Eden 12, my workshop." Her eyes widened at the word safe. She hadn't heard it in a long time. Over the next few days, Ethan cared for her as she recovered. He repaired the translator band found in her pod, cleaned her wounds, and gave her clean clothes. She was quiet, always watching him and his son work. Ethan fixed engines, hover bikes, and even a broken robot pet for Leo. Sometimes he'd glance at Lyra and see her eyes filled with questions. He could feel the weight of something unspoken behind them. One evening, when the orange light of the twin suns filled the sky, Lyra asked softly, "Why help me?" Ethan looked up from his workbench. "Because someone should," he said simply. "Out here, no one survives alone." His answer surprised her. On her world, everything was trade, give and take. Kindness without reason didn't exist. Later that night, while Leo slept, Lyra sat near the fire staring at the stars through the workshop window. Ethan joined her. "You must have come from far away," he said. "That mark on your wrist. It's royal, isn't it?" She froze. Her heart pounded. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not with curiosity, but care. After a long silence, she whispered, "My father sold me." Ethan's hand tightened around his cup. He wanted to speak, but no words came. He just nodded slowly, letting her continue. "I was not perfect. They said I could not give life, so I was not worthy of it." Her voice broke on the last word. Ethan looked at her. Really looked. He saw not an alien princess, not a broken creature, but someone deeply human, someone abandoned by power. "Listen," he said firmly. "Whatever they told you, they're wrong. You're not broken. You just need a place to start again." Lyra turned to him, her silver eyes reflecting the firelight. "Started again?" He smiled. "Yeah, everyone deserves a second chance. Even a mechanic like me got one once." From that day on, a strange peace settled over the workshop. Lyra helped Ethan fix machines, learning the human way. Slow, patient, filled with laughter and mistakes. She laughed for the first time when Leo dropped a wrench and shouted, "Oops! Gravity attack!" At night, she sat with them, sharing meals and stories. Ethan noticed her pale skin slowly glowing warmer, like life returning to her veins. But in the dark corners of space, trouble was already moving. The Emperor's scouts had found the wrecked pod. They sent a signal to the Empire. The hunters were coming. Back on Eden 12, Ethan had no idea what storm was about to fall. One evening, as thunder rolled outside, Lyra stood by the doorway watching the rain. She turned to Ethan and said softly, "You helped me. Now I help you," he chuckled. "Deal. But first you need to rest." Lyra smiled, and a real living smile. "I will learn to fix machines like you. I will not break again." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "And I promise, no one will ever hurt you again. Not while I'm here." Outside, lightning flashed across the sky, as if the universe itself was listening. It was that night Ethan made a silent vow. He would protect this girl, no matter what it cost him. He didn't know that the choice he made would soon draw the eyes of an empire and change the meaning of life in the galaxy forever. In the deep halls of the Zirath Imperial Palace, silence fell heavy. The throne room glowed with blue fire reflecting off silver walls. The alien emperor stood before a massive star map, his golden eyes burning with anger. A messenger knelt before him. "My lord, the transport carrying your daughter was destroyed." But he hesitated. "Traces of her life signal have been detected near the human colonies." The emperor's face hardened. "Impossible. That world was never meant to be touched by my blood." He turned away, his robe whispering across the marble floor. His advisors exchanged uneasy glances. They knew what he was thinking. If the galaxy discovered that the emperor had sold his own daughter, it would destroy his reputation, his throne, and his legacy. There could be no witnesses, no survivors. "Send the hunters," the emperor said coldly. "Find her. And if she remembers who she is, erase her memory. If she resists, erase her existence." Far across the stars on the quiet planet Eden 12, life had become peaceful, almost too peaceful. Lyra was learning fast. Every morning she helped Ethan fix small engines and repair ship parts. She even learned to speak human words clearly. Leo called her big sister, and she smiled every time. One day, while fixing a small power cell, Lyra looked at Ethan and said softly, "Humans build things. With care, not just metal." "You fix hearts too," Ethan chuckled. "Maybe that's our secret skill." But deep inside he sensed something was wrong. Strange signals were being picked up by his workshop scanners. Coded messages, encrypted frequencies from orbit. That evening, He found Lyra sitting quietly near the old radio. Her hands glowed faintly as she touched the controls. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked. Her voice trembled. I don't know. When I hear those signals, something wakes inside my mind. I see light and voices." Ethan frowned. "Voices?" She nodded. "They speak my name. My real name. Lyra of Zerath." The truth hit him like lightning. She wasn't just some lost alien, she was royalty. The Emperor's daughter. Ethan sat down slowly, rubbing his forehead. "That means someone is looking for you, and they won't stop." Lyra's eyes filled with fear. "He will come for me. Your father?" Ethan asked. She looked down. "He will not come to save me. He will come to silence me." The next day, Ethan locked the workshop doors and started modifying his old freighter. If danger was coming, he wanted to be ready. He installed shields, hid supplies, and began teaching Leo how to stay calm under pressure. That night, when Leo was asleep, Lyra sat beside Ethan as he worked. She whispered, "You should not help me. They will hurt you." He smiled faintly. "Lyra, when I lost my wife, I promised I'd never let someone suffer alone again." "You're not just some alien I rescued. You're part of this family now." Lyra felt her throat tighten. No one had ever called her family before. Suddenly, a loud beeping filled the room, a warning from the radar. Ethan ran to the screen. 3 unidentified ships were entering orbit. "They found us," he whispered. In space above Eden 12, sleek black ships moved silently, their engines glowing red. Inside one of them, a masked commander spoke into a communicator. "Target confirmed. The Emperor's daughter is on this planet. Orders are clear, no witnesses." Back on the ground, Ethan shut off the lights. "Lyra, take Leo and hide in the storage room." "Don't make a sound," she hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll buy you time," he said firmly. Lyra's eyes burned with tears. "Humans, you risk so much for nothing." Ethan smiled. "Not for nothing. For someone who matters." As the sound of engines roared outside, the first hunter ship landed. Metal feet hit the ground. Shadows moved toward the workshop. Lyra held Leo close, trembling. Through a crack in the door, she watched Ethan face the hunters with nothing but a welding torch and courage. The lead soldier raised a weapon. "Hand over the girl." Ethan stood tall. "Sorry, workshop's closed." A flash of light filled the room. The battle had begun. Lyra felt something explode inside her. Her eyes glowed with a strange white light, her heart beat faster than sound. For the first time she felt power, real power, rising from within. The Empire's secret was awakening. Smoke filled the air as the alien hunters surrounded the small workshop on Eden 12. Their armor gleamed under the storm clouds, and their red eyes scanned every corner. Inside, Ethan Cole stood alone. No armor, no weapon. Just a human with grease-stained hands and a heart made of iron. He could hear Lyra breathing quietly from the hidden room behind him. He whispered under his breath, "Stay down, no matter what happens." The leader of the hunters stepped forward. His voice was cold and mechanical. "Human, surrender the girl. She is the property of the Zerath Empire." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She's not your property. She's under my roof. And on my world, that means she's under my protection." The hunter tilted his head. "You dare defy the Emperor?" Ethan smirked. "I don't care who your boss is. You want her? You'll have to go through me." Without warning, blue plasma bolts exploded across the workshop. Ethan dived behind a metal table, sparks flying everywhere. He grabbed a wrench and hurled it at the nearest soldier, knocking out a visor. It wasn't much, but it made them angry, and that gave him seconds. From the hidden room, Lyra watched in horror. Her eyes glowed faintly as the power inside her stirred again. But she remembered Ethan's words. "Stay hidden." She clenched her fists, trembling. Outside, the townsfolk saw the fire and came running. Farmers, miners, and traders, all simple people. They didn't understand who the hunters were, but they knew one thing. Ethan Cole had helped everyone in that town at least once. "Those metal freaks are attacking Ethan's place," one man shouted. Within minutes, a dozen humans armed with old blasters, tools, and courage surrounded the area. They didn't have orders or armor, just loyalty. Inside, Ethan reloaded an old pulse rifle from his shelf and shouted through the broken door, "You picked the wrong planet." The humans opened fire together, bright flashes lighting up the storm. The hunters were faster and stronger, but they weren't ready for chaos. Humans fought dirty. throwing fuel, setting traps, using machines as shields. Lyra couldn't stay back any longer. She burst out of hiding, her eyes burning white like twin suns. Energy danced around her hands. "Lyra, no," Ethan shouted, but it was too late. She lifted her palms and a wave of blinding light exploded outward. The hunters' suits short-circuited, their weapons shutting down. The humans ducked for cover as the power shook the ground. When the light faded, Lyra fell to her knees. Smoke rose from her hands. Ethan ran to her side and caught her before she collapsed. Hey, you did good," he whispered. Her voice was weak. "I didn't want to hurt them." Ethan smiled softly. "You didn't. You just reminded them what happens when you mess with family." After the fight, the hunters retreated, their ship limping back into the clouds. The townspeople cheered, surrounding Ethan and Lyra. "Who is she?" one woman asked. Ethan hesitated. "Someone who needed help. That's all." But as he looked at Lyra, he knew it wasn't the full truth. She wasn't just someone, she was becoming something more. That night, as rain washed the battlefield clean, Lyra sat quietly beside the fire. Her hands still glowed faintly, but this time it didn't frighten her. Ethan poured her a cup of warm tea. "You saved a lot of lives today," he said. She looked up. "Why do humans fight for others? Even when it brings danger?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Because it's the right thing. That's the human way. We fight for what's worth loving, not just for what's worth keeping." Lyra stared into the flames. "The human way," she repeated softly, as if trying to memorize it. Far above, in the blackness of space, the Emperor watched through holographic feeds. His golden eyes narrowed as he saw his daughter surrounded by cheering humans. "She has chosen them," he said coldly. An advisor trembled. "What shall we do, my lord?" The Emperor's face twisted with fury. "Prepare the fleet. If she will not return to the Empire will go to her." Back on Eden 12, Ethan stepped outside and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, he knew a storm was coming. But as Lyra stood beside him, the soft light of her eyes shining in the dark, he felt something stronger than fear, hope. Whatever came next, they would face it together, not as alien and human, but as family. The night sky over Eden 12 no longer looked peaceful. Strange red lights flickered among the stars, moving in formation. They weren't stars at all. They were ships. Warships. High above the small planet, the Zerath Imperial fleet arrived in silence. Their hulls gleamed like black mirrors, reflecting the light of the twin suns. At the center of the armada floated a ship larger than any city, the Emperor's flagship, Obsidian Crown. Inside, the alien Emperor stood at the command bridge, his golden eyes staring coldly at the hologram of his daughter. She appeared beside a human man and child, smiling, laughing, alive. "She smiles among them," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "My blood, polluted by human weakness." His advisor bowed deeply. "Shall we send ground troops, my lord?" The Emperor's gaze turned sharper. "No, this is not a rescue. This is a purge," he turned to his general. "Burn the colony. Leave nothing standing." The general hesitated. "But your daughter is no longer my daughter," the Emperor hissed. "She is a traitor." Down on Eden 12, Ethan Cole stood outside his workshop, staring at the growing glow in the sky. The scanners on his roof screamed with warnings. He didn't need to read them. He already knew what they meant. "They're here," he whispered. Lyra stepped beside him, her silver hair catching the wind, her eyes filled with fear and sadness. "My father has come." Ethan looked at her gently. "Then we do what humans always do, we fight for our home." Lyra shook her head. "You don't understand. His fleet can destroy this world. You can't fight an empire." Ethan smiled softly. "Maybe not. But I can protect the people I care about." As dawn broke, panic spread through the colony. The sky burned red as the Emperor's fleet entered orbit. Townsfolk ran to Ethan's workshop for help, shouting, "What's happening? Are we under attack?" Ethan climbed onto his hover truck and shouted, "Everyone underground. Get to the old mines. Take only what you need." Lyra joined him, her voice calm but strong. "Go now, the Empire is coming. I will try to stop them." People looked at her with fear and awe. She no longer seemed fragile. Her eyes glowed faintly, and her presence filled the air like static energy. Ethan turned to her. "You're not going alone." Lyra looked at him sadly. "Ethan, if you stay, you'll die." He shook his head. If I let you face this alone, I'll die anyway. Far above, the first wave of attack ships broke through the clouds. Plasma fire rained down, turning fields to fire. The ground shook. Buildings crumbled. Ethan's shields barely held as the workshop trembled. Leo clung to his father, crying, "Dad, make it stop!" "I will, buddy. I promise," Ethan said, holding him close. Then Lyra stepped outside. The sky reflected in her glowing eyes. She raised her arms, and for a moment the chaos stopped. The falling plasma bolts froze mid-air, humming like lightning trapped in glass. The townsfolk stared in shock. Ethan's jaw dropped. "Lyra, what are you doing?" Her voice echoed soft yet powerful. "I will not let my father destroy what gave me life." Back aboard the Emperor's ship, alarms blared. Unknown energy detected on the surface. The Emperor frowned. Impossible. That power was sealed generations ago. The hologram showed his daughter standing beneath the fire, surrounded by humans. Her body glowed with a radiant light, the light of creation, an ancient energy that only pure hearts could awaken. She was infertile. The Emperor whispered, realizing too late. "Not broken, dormant." The general turned to him. "My lord, the readings, they match the source from the old legends. She carries the spark." The Emperor's rage turned to fear. If she unlocks it fully, she could end me. On the surface, Lyra trembled as the light around her grew brighter. The ships above halted mid-attack. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Ethan stepped toward her, shielding his eyes. "Lyra, stop it, you'll burn yourself out." She smiled faintly. "No, Ethan. I finally understand. My people wanted power, but they forgot what gives it meaning. Your kindness, your courage, you showed me what true creation means." The light burst upward, striking the sky. The Emperor's fleet shuddered as their systems crashed one by one. For the first time, the Empire felt powerless, not because of weapons, but because of a single act of love. As the light faded, Lyra fell into Ethan's arms, weak but alive. The burning sky slowly cleared. The fleet retreated into the darkness. Ethan held her close, whispering, "It's over." "You did it?" Lyra opened her eyes and smiled faintly. "Not yet. He will come himself next time." Ethan looked toward the stars, his jaw set. "Then we'll be ready." Far away aboard the Obsidian Crown, the Emperor watched his fleet retreat in silence. His face was calm, but his heart burned. He turned to the stars and whispered, "So be it. If my daughter has chosen humanity, then humanity will know the true wrath of the Empire." Days passed after the great battle. The skies over Eden 12 were quiet again, but the ground still carried the marks of fire and war. The town was half ruined, yet people worked together to rebuild it. Humans helping one another with smiles and courage, the way they always did. Inside the small workshop, Ethan Cole sat beside the bed where Lyra lay unconscious. Her silver hair glowed faintly, and her skin shimmered with soft light. She had not moved since she used her power to stop the Emperor's fleet. Little Leo placed a flower on the table near her hand. "Will she wake up, Dad?" Ethan smiled weakly. "She will, son. She's stronger than she looks." But deep down he was afraid. The scanners showed her life signs were fading. He touched her hand and whispered, "You saved everyone. Now let us save you." In her dreams, Lyra saw herself standing in an endless white space. The stars shimmered above, and a soft voice called to her. "You were told you were broken," the voice said. "You were told you could not give life. But life is not only born from the body, it is born from love." Lyra gasped as a warm light wrapped around her. She saw Ethan, Leo, and the people of Eden 12, all working, helping, laughing. She saw her father's cold empire, empty and silent. And in that moment she understood the difference. Her world had machines and power, but the humans had something far greater: heart. When Lyra finally opened her eyes, sunlight filled the room. Ethan was asleep in the chair beside her, head resting on his arm. Leo snored softly on his lap. She smiled. "You waited for me?" Ethan woke with a start, blinking.
"Lyra, you're awake!"
She nodded weakly. "I saw something beautiful. I think I understand now." "Understand what?" Ethan asked. Lyra placed a hand on her stomach, feeling warmth inside her, soft and steady like a heartbeat. "I was told I could never give life, but now something is growing." Ethan stared, not understanding at first. Then his eyes widened. "You mean—" She smiled gently. "Yes, a new life. A child." Ethan sat back in shock. It didn't seem possible. Alien science had declared her barren. But human kindness had awakened something even science couldn't explain. He whispered, "That's a miracle." Lyra nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "No, that's the human way." Far across the galaxy in the great throne room of the Zerath Empire, the Emperor watched a hologram trembling with static. His scientists knelt before him, terrified. "My lord, we have confirmed the readings. The princess's energy signature has changed. She carries life." The Emperor rose slowly, his cloak sweeping the floor. His golden eyes widened for the first time in years, not with anger but with disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "She was cursed." "Defective." One of the scientists spoke carefully. "It seems human contact altered her cells. The energy from their emotions, from love and care. It reactivated something long thought extinct in our kind." The Emperor clenched his fists. "Human emotions? You expect me to believe that feelings cured the royal bloodline?" But deep inside, he knew the truth. His own daughter had achieved what all his scientists and temples could not. She had found creation through compassion, the very thing he had rejected all his life. Back on Eden 12, Lyra began to recover. The people treated her not as an alien, but as one of their own. She helped rebuild homes, repaired machines, and laughed with Leo as they painted the workshop walls again. When she felt tired, Ethan was there, bringing her tea and smiles. Sometimes they sat together outside at night watching the stars. "Your people will come again," Ethan said one evening. Lyra nodded. "Yes, but next time I won't run. I'll stand." "You think you can change them?" he asked. She looked at him, eyes glowing softly. "No, I think we can." In the dark reaches of space, the Emperor sat alone on his throne, staring at the empty stars. His daughter, once sold as worthless, now carried the one thing his empire could never create. A guard entered the chamber quietly. "My lord, the council demands to know your next command." The Emperor's voice was low, almost broken. "There will be no war, not yet. If the humans can create what we cannot, then I must see this with my own eyes." He rose, his cloak dragging behind him like a shadow. "Prepare my ship. I am going to Eden 12. On the small blue planet, Lyra looked up at the stars, the same stars her father now watched, and whispered softly, "Let him come. Maybe this time he'll learn what life truly means." Beside her, Ethan smiled. "Whatever happens, we face it together. And for the first time in the history of two species, the child of an alien empire and the heart of humanity beat as one, the beginning of something the galaxy would one day call the miracle of Eden 12, the day the Emperor's ship entered the skies of Eden 12. The entire colony fell silent. The massive vessel cast a shadow over mountains and fields, blocking the morning sun. It was not war this time. No weapons, no soldiers. Only the Emperor himself, coming down to meet the daughter he had once sold. From the landing field, Ethan Cole stood watching with steady eyes. Beside him, Lyra held Leo's hand, her silver eyes calm and bright. Her belly now glowed faintly, the quiet sign of the miracle growing inside her. As the ramp lowered, the alien Emperor stepped onto human soil for the first time. His golden armor shone, but his face looked older, colder, almost empty. The crowd stood in silence, waiting to see what would happen. Lyra took one step forward. "Father," she said softly. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "You should not call me that." Lyra's voice was calm but strong. "Then what should I call the man who sold me?" Gasps ran through the crowd. Ethan placed a protective hand on her shoulder, but Lyra didn't waver. The Emperor's voice dropped low. "You defied your empire. You defiled your bloodline. Yet, you live. Explain to me how." Lyra smiled faintly. "Because humans taught me what life really means." The Emperor looked around. He saw children playing among ruins, humans rebuilding homes together with laughter and care. He saw machines running on teamwork, not orders. He saw warmth where his empire had only cold perfection. He frowned. "Your body was barren. Our healers said it was hopeless." Lyra placed a hand over her stomach. "Your healers never looked at the heart." "I was not broken, only unloved, and love is what gave me life again." The Emperor stepped closer, his golden eyes reflecting the soft light from her. "That glow inside you, it is the spark of creation." "Yes," she whispered, "and it grows stronger every day." He looked stunned. Then it's true. You are carrying a child. Ethan stepped forward, his voice firm. A child born of two worlds, human and alien. The first of its kind. The Emperor turned to him sharply. You did this? Ethan met his gaze without fear. No, we did this. She chose life. I just helped her see it. The Emperor stared at him for a long moment, then turned away, his expression unreadable. Hours passed. The Emperor walked through the colony silently, watching humans work side by side. No one bowed to him. No one feared him. Yet somehow their unity commanded more respect than all his soldiers combined. He stopped near a small repair site, where a little human girl offered him a flower. For you, mister, she said with a smile. The Emperor froze, unsure what to do. In his empire, no one gave anything freely. Slowly, he took the flower. And for the first time in centuries, he felt something stir inside his chest. When he returned to Lyra and Ethan, his face was softer. Your people are strange, he said quietly. Weak in body, yet strong in spirit, Ethan smiled. That's humanity for you. The Emperor looked at his daughter. I built an empire on fear. You've built a family on love. And somehow you've done what I never could. You've given our kind a future. Lyra's eyes glistened with tears. You can still change, Father. It's not too late. He looked at her for a long time. Then slowly the mighty Emperor of Zerath bowed his head. Perhaps the galaxy has more to learn from humanity than I ever imagined. When he left Eden 12, he didn't come with armies. He came with promises. The Empire began to change, slowly, painfully, but truly. Trade replaced conquest. Words replaced weapons. The story of the human mechanic and the souled princess spread across the stars. Poets called it the miracle of Eden 12. Even soldiers whispered that humanity had done the impossible, not by fighting, but by caring. Years later, a small child played outside the workshop. A girl with bright blue eyes and brown hair, laughter ringing through the air. She was half human, half Zerath, the living bridge between two species once divided by pride. Lyra watched her play and whispered to Ethan, See her? That's the future our worlds needed. Ethan smiled, wrapping his arm around her. Yeah, the galaxy finally learned its lesson. Lyra looked up at the sky, where two suns shone together, and said softly, Not strength, not blood, but love. That's the real power of humanity.